to get used to it and then come back to it under times of stress and tension.
Right. For me, it's right here, right in my stomach, like right
Yes.
below my ribs. I just get this tightening and I could just feel everything. It's like, and you're not taking deep breaths because your whole body is so clenched that you're not like,
Yeah.
hi, everyone. Shaelene McInnis here with the Ontario Wellness Network magazine. Back again to talk about everything to do with wellness, especially coming up to the holidays with Christmas and New Year's. I think this is a time when people go through a lot of stress, a lot of family issues. We're all stuck together and some of us don't like each other and we're trying to get along. And it's a very high stress situation for a lot of people. I'm really happy to bring on this person. Her name is Stacey Sanderson. And as I always say, not to worry, we'll have all of her contact information with this podcast so that you'll be able to contact her. And again, if for any reason you can't get a hold of Stacey, then you can always call us at the office at Books and Line, and we'll be happy to connect you. So this is Stacey Sanderson. She's a certified holistic life coach, registered psychotherapist. She specializes in helping people heal and release unhealthy patterns that come from narcissistic relational abuse. Her work is collaborative and intuitively guided, often assisting empaths and highly sensitive people in reigniting their power so they can fulfill their true potential. I love that. That's a great introduction. So, Stacey, I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself to our audience.
Yes, thank you very much, Shaelene. That was a lovely introduction and definitely encompassed all the things I would like for people to hear. So it is such a pleasure to be here and be having this conversation in this particular week in December. So happy to keep going with the lovely synchronicity we have here.
I agree with that. The timing. I have so many people who've been contacting me recently. We run a lot of different workshops covering, learning to say no, understanding boundaries. This is that time of year when people really need to learn and focus on those things and bring themselves back down to earth. So I'd like to talk about mindfulness, which is one of it's so funny. Last year, my word of the year was mindfulness. I could get myself, be mindful, get yourself grounded. Don't think about the past. Don't think about the future. Stay in the present. And I found that when I'm able to do that, it definitely brings down my heart rate, makes everything calmer, brings me back to the present moment. I am going to ask you, because I know that for myself and a lot of our listeners here, this is an issue that we have, is remembering to be mindful. Can you give us maybe some examples of how we can remind ourselves to be present in the moment and more at peace, perhaps?
Sure. I think that reminder, first and foremost, comes from paying attention what comes up in our bodies. So we can be very easily put off course by the stressors going on, the demands happening, the ongoing inner narrative we have about what we should be doing. So what makes sense is check in with the body and notice where you're holding any upset, any tension, notice if you're contracting because of stress or fear, notice any sort of frowning, noticing any sort of upset in the tummy. And most of us hold stress and tension in our neck and shoulders. So those are good go-to areas to see if you're holding any tension. And I highly recommend you do this when you're calm to get used to it and then come back to it under times of stress and tension.
Right. Yeah, I know when I have times of stress and tension that you're talking about, for me, it's right here, right in my stomach, like right below my ribs. I just get this tightening and I could just feel everything. It's like, and you're not taking deep breaths because your whole body is so clenched that you're not like.
Yeah. So
right?
just
And then
imagine breathing
releasing.
in awareness of where you're holding that upset intention.
Hmm.
And as you breathe out, imagine letting it just release or open and soften. And it sounds so simple, but it
Yeah.
works very well. Yes.
I like the word soften because when you say soften, it's like, okay, because as soon as you do that, you can even feel your whole face, everything just start to go, okay, shh, and you start to release. So when we're talking about mindfulness, so we're talking about recognizing that, you're not in the state of mindfulness, that you're in a state of stress, that you're thinking about the past or the future or whatever it may be. And you can feel that tension inside. So when you say, I recognize, okay, wait, I'm not in the state of being present, then so when you can go, okay, I'll take a few breaths. Can you tell us some other ideas about bringing yourself to being present, being mindful, being in the moment?
Yes. And something else that can be really helpful is to feel your feet connect to the floor and
Mm-hmm.
thus the earth beneath you. So breathing in, awareness of where you're holding your body. And then as you breathe out, releasing that tension and then breathing in, just imagining your feet like they're growing roots, connecting
Mm-hmm.
you into the earth. And so, again, breathing in that awareness and breathing out, just releasing it, releasing whatever it is that you're holding back into the earth.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I know that often when I'm starting to feel that tension, I know what you're talking about, the grounding. I find that if I walk in nature, that
Yeah.
brings me right back down, the birds and the trees. And it's like, okay, now it's bringing me back down to what I need to be.
Yes, just reconnect with the earth. Yes.
This is such an important subject, especially at this time of the year. Um, so now I'd like to talk about relationships because, of course, during the holidays, often you are put into a situation. It can be a spousal relationship, a relationship with a parent, a sister, a step parent, or your mother-in-law, father-in-law. So when you're in these stressful relationships, can you give us some ideas before going into Christmas, before going into the holidays, for whatever holiday anyone celebrates, when we have that time off and we know that we're going to have this time when we are going to be in the same space as someone who perhaps triggers us, or more importantly, the way I'd word it is someone who we allow to trigger us, then how could we start to deal with it now, looking ahead for the next few weeks? Okay, now pretend
Yep.
I have a mother-in-law that I love very much. Just for the record, she's amazing. But pretend she's not, but she is the best person. But say she wasn't, and I'm already at this point regretting or thinking about what's going to happen. Can you tell me how I maybe could start to prepare now for that?
Sure. One of the things that we need to pay attention to is the level of tension, stress, and emotional dysregulation going on with other people, and particularly this time of year. And so I have done two podcast guest spot, another and my own YouTube talk on this subject. So I feel like I've been talking about it a lot. So
Mm-hmm.
it's right there for me to rely on. But that's the first thing to notice. And if you tend to pick up on things easily for people, it
Mm-hmm.
is really important that you pay attention to this.
Mm-hmm.
So it can be super easy to get pulled into someone else's emotional activation, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think this happened to me about 3 or 4 times last Christmas Eve at a family gathering. And so think about that first, right? Notice what's going on with that other person before you're going into any kind of interaction
Mm-hmm.
or conversation with them. And then you also check in with yourself and your own level of stress or anxiety or upset. And this is particularly true if you've had negative experiences with someone in the past. And I am really understating this because, quite frankly, there are many people who will be against their will, perhaps going into some type of interactions with people who have really harmed them
Yes.
historically. So,
Yes.
everything I'm saying is on that spectrum of the severity of this and what your prior experiences have been with these people. So it's natural that in your own limbic system or central nervous system, that you're going to be, reacting and responding to this really based on what your own history is.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's important to remember. So what goes along with this is taking care of your physical self and your physical space. So
Mm-hmm.
I will often
Mm-hmm.
say to clients as part of boundary work, imagine that there's a glass wall or a brick wall, or there's some type of physical barrier between yourself and that person who might be upsetting to you. And then you can then also technically, physically create space, right? Don't
Mm-hmm.
get too close to them. Have an
Mm-hmm.
exit strategy. Bring your own car or have your own way out of wherever
Mm-hmm.
you're going. Have safe people that you can
Mm-hmm.
lean into, that you can go find if you're in a big enough group. Have a plan if something escalates and you need to get out of there. So you're doing all of this in preparation. And
Mm-hmm.
all of us can get really anxious about these
Mm-hmm.
sorts of interactions.
Yes.
I know I
Yes.
do. But we can
Mm-hmm.
use that same ability to imagine the best possible outcome, or imagine ourselves really gracefully approaching this and being grounded, and if I
Yeah.
standing in your power, and not being as influenced as perhaps you've been in the past.
Right. So it's like choosing your reaction. You can,
Mm-hmm.
I like to tell people that you're very empowered. You have a lot more power than you know, because you can
Yes.
choose your reaction to a person. Like
Mm-hmm.
maybe every time this person does this, you do this. They do this, you do this. And it happens over and over again until one day you go, you know what? No, I'm going to do a completely different reaction. So this
Yes.
person again does this, and you don't do anything. You
Yes.
walk away quietly, you smile, but yeah, choosing your reaction is very empowering. Now, we had briefly touched on this before we started recording. We'll call them narcissistic patterns. I just say
Yes.
narcissistic, but that's me. Like, can we talk about patterns of narcissism and how perhaps someone can recognize that there may be these patterns in another person?
Yeah, it really is takes me back to um this idea of checking in with yourself and checking in with your body, because it
Right.
will register a reaction there. So if you've had narcissistic parents, or a parent, or parents who were self-absorbed or toxic, whatever word you want to use, you are already neurobiologically hardwired to
Yeah.
be influenced by these kinds of people. You go in, that's just your central nervous system keeping you safe. So it helps to know that. Or if you've had, siblings or a partner, just depending on where you are
Mm-hmm.
in your life trajectory. So if you know that about yourself, then you know that that's been part of your core conditioning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. So this is how you've learned to survive perhaps your own family system, or being with these very difficult people. So we can label it as bad, but it really isn't. It's there to keep you safe, but it may
Right.
manifest in maladaptive ways.
Right.
So that's one thing to keep an eye on. If we're speaking particularly about Christmas or the holiday season
Yeah.
in general, what I've come to learn is that narcissists really don't like it when people are happy.
Yeah.
There's something about this that activates them on a very primal level, and they're not conscious of this, right? But I think I said to one of my clients this week, like, your very existence annoys them if
Mm-hmm.
you're happy. So
If
we
you're
know we
happy,
think of,
yeah.
if you think about we think about those archetypes of Scrooge or the Grinch. That comes from
Yeah.
somewhere, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
deeply embedded in the collective consciousness, this awareness of these people. So not that I'm saying don't be happy, quite the contrary.
Oh, yeah.
Really be joyful, right? Really do the things that you love and that bring you joy and that keep you grounded. And so this is how I very first started writing about this, was about 11 years ago. I wrote a blog on creating your own Christmas ritual, because I'm Christian, but creating your own holiday
Mm-hmm.
ritual in preparation for this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do
Mm-hmm.
the things that bring you into this state of joy.
Yes.
So for me on Christmas Eve, this is either a really long run or a ski if we're lucky, but just
Right.
doing something that gets you feeling good, that takes care of your body, and that
Yeah.
keeps you up into this higher vibration. So now I'm talking about energetic rather vibrational boundaries, about, you want to stay in as high amount of joy, or at least contentment or peace as you can, as your own psychological boundary, and do not worry about the feelings and reactions of this other person. They're not for you to worry about, right?
Yes, that's a really good point. People with narcissistic patterns do not like it when someone else is happy, because the focus is then not on them. And if the focus is not on them, everything is bad. Yeah, the resentment, the anger, it's just palpable in some cases.
Exactly. Yeah. And confusing.
Yeah.
In the context. And
right.
Common patterns you'll see, particularly this time of year, would be everything needs to be on their terms. So
yes.
these are the people who insist on hosting and then complain about it later.
Yep.
They can be very unusual gift givers.
Oh, yes.
So so they can be very transactional with gift giving.
Yes.
So if you get something, that's a luxury item, there's going to be something that's expected of you, or it may be a very perfunctory kind of gift, right? So I've heard many people over the years, talk about the dollar store gifts or the bargain store gifts that their kids get from a self-absorbed grandparent. They can, and this is, in my opinion, the most common thing to expect. They will pick a fight that they can sabotage the entire event.
Yes.
This is the most common one, so you need to be prepared for that. And then another more subtle one is they may get sick or have a health crisis.
Oh, yes.
I have a lot of experiences with this one. So it can, and it ranges, right? It can be a migraine headache, to the flu, to a cold, to something acting up, but that's another common pattern. And another one that comes to mind is just running interference with whatever the plans might be.
Oh, yes.
Just being a wild card in all of it. So that's like the top 5. and these are patterns. These are things that repeat themselves, unfortunately, or fortunately, because we get to predict it a little bit.
Right. It's interesting because what all 5 things have in common is those actions, reactions, behaviors are meant to keep everyone else off balance.
Yes.
Right? Everyone else off balance, so that no matter what, you're always waiting to see, what is that person doing? What is that person asking for? What do they want? Yeah, it's meant to keep everyone else off balance. I've seen that. I know exactly what you're talking about. This effort to keep everyone off balance. And what I have seen is that the one person who won't be manipulated by this person, the person who has narcissistic patterns will go right after directly that person, over and over and over and over again. It's my belief that often they will pick their one person until they can move on to the next person. I work with a lot of people going through divorce. I actually have, I work with a woman in the United States, and when she helps people get out of relationships that are bad, where there's a narcissistic partner. I will just say the word. It's okay.
It's okay.
But what they'll do is they bring in a girlfriend. I bet you've never heard of that. So that when the spouse has left, usually the woman has left this person, of course, they'll be so enraged because they're embarrassed that, how dare you leave me? And all the neighbors saw it, and all these other people know, and they're so humiliated that they will go after this person to the ends of the earth. So there's this people who bring in a girlfriend. So then his attention will be on this girlfriend, and it gives the woman time to go. And then, the girlfriend eventually obviously leaves. There's actually people that do this.
Oh, like the friend of the wife or the female.
Oh, no, they'll bring in a pretend girlfriend for him. So that, someone who seems to be interested to him, because then his attention will leave the person that he's going after, and it's suddenly on another person that gives her time to go. There's actually people that do that. It's
to have that safe exit strategy.
Yes, that's interesting. So going into Christmas, going into the holidays, I should say, going into the holidays, could you give us, say, 3 concrete plans for dealing with people who maybe we find we allow to make us anxious or concerned or worried, or how can give us some examples of what can we do now going into the holidays to prep?
Yes, of course. One of them is anchor into what you value. Know what's important to you and then make decisions accordingly. So if you value family,
yes,
then that might guide your decision. If you value inner peace, then that might guide your decision. And I realize I've just created a dilemma, but it's one that I have been walking people through for the last 3 weeks or so. But often, we can stay in our inner peace if we value family and we are able to hold it together, if you will, through that family gathering. So anchoring into values. The other one is remember to be checking in around your level of stress and upset. So that's just building on what I said earlier, right?
Yep.
And then that's going to help with whatever your boundaries are.
Yeah.
And there's a lot more I could say, but I think the third thing would be to be really intentional about what you're going to say yes and no to.
Yes, that's a great one.
And
it's a really good one.
What can go along with that is, I think, I am paraphrasing Oscar Wilde here, but I don't want to be in a party where I'm not really wanted, right? Or I wouldn't go to a party where I wasn't really invited, I think is what I'm trying to say.
Right.
But for me, this has played out as I want to be with the people that I care about and who care about me.
Yes.
And this really refers to, when we say we're going to do something and we really don't want to, which is what creates, in my opinion, a significant amount of issues.
Right.
So say no and mean that, and, operate with a level of compassion towards yourself and that other person.
Right.
Call that compassionate detachment, where you're thinking about yourself, but really detaching from the reactions and perhaps dramatics of the other people involved.
That's interesting. In business, for anyone who doesn't know, I own Books Online. It's an accounting company. I always, when I give advice to anyone who's starting their business, I'm like, surround yourself with the right people.
Yes.
So you're making the conscious choice of who you're going to surround yourself with. And it would be the same thing as going into the holidays.
Yes.
Make the decision. You have every right to say, no, this is not a situation for me. And you don't have to give another explanation. I completely agree, Stacey. Thank you. I'm going to get this out as soon as possible so that we can all have this during the holidays, this piece of advice. So I'd like to remind the audience again, you are welcome to contact Stacey. You want to talk to her and prepare for everything in the holidays, get some advice, learn about boundaries. This is something I think a lot of people have an issue with. So I think that's really important to everyone. We'll have all the contact information included with Stacey, and you can always call Books Online, and we could put you in touch with her directly. Thank you, Stacey, for your time. This was an excellent conversation before the holidays. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone, very much. Thank you.